In today's video we add a fully automated Lego gondola in combination with new rock work, but before I'll show you the progress we've made at the mountain, it's time to expand the Lego city starting underneath the bridge. For that area I've decided to add a skate park, that's also why the bridge is the first thing to come out. And right here I've prepared a angled cutout for the half pipe, and Lego has in fact come through with the exact perfect part for such a half pipe. So for once I didn't have much creative freedom with the build, but I mean, why would I try to create smooth curves when Lego already provides the perfect arch? I just placed them opposite of each other and there we go, the half pipe was basically done. The only thing that was left to do is add a bit of action with some minifigures, doing some tricks mid-air. So once again, those slightly angled transparent pins were the perfect piece for creating the illusion that they were actually flying through the air. Before the half pipe could be installed though, I had to tile the edges as well as the whole surface. Although I kept things simple, once again on such a large surface area, anything too complicated would take way too much time. And once the tiling was done, I slotted the half pipe right into place. On the left side, however, I now had a bit of a problem. Two triangular gaps and one long open space right there. I solved the long gap easily by adding tiles onto modified plates, but with these triangles it was a bit trickier, and well, in this case, in order to get rid of them, I simply decided to cover it up using plants and a skateboard. I mean, it works. Next, I moved on to building the boundaries for the rest of the skate park. My goal here was to create some smooth curves, so I went with a technique I've already used several times before, where you connect 1x2 plates, giving you a lot of flexibility, and this simply helps to break up the grid pattern of the studs. On the left side, the skate park ends with a few more rails. I added because, I mean, no skate park is complete without them. And then the most important part was adding minifigures. For instance, this guy over here has wiped out, lost his leg, and now the medic is rushing over to help him. I went a bit overboard with the storytelling, I know, as well as the number of minifigures, but otherwise the entire area would look way too grey. That's also why I've placed the skate park underneath the bridge to keep it from standing out too much in the overall Lego City landscape. To counter all the grey, I've now started building a small city park right next to the skate park. The greenery really pops alongside with some blue, so I decided to add a fountain in the middle. I used the exact same building technique for the fountain walls as I did with the park's borders, using 1x1 curved slopes on top. For the water, I now tried using these curved transparent pins that were originally meant for flying objects, but I thought they actually work quite well as water streams too. They might be a bit too tall and not curved enough, but I think it's a fun use of this piece. I added the usual layer of plants to finish off the park alongside with some flowers, and then started paving the other side. Trees are once again essential to break up all the grey, and after I had placed the second tree, it was time to finally add the last tram stop, along with some minifigures of course. But before we now let the tram run, it was time to add one more wish that you guys keep on spamming down in the comments. I should add a supermarket, and that's what we're going to do right now. First of all, with this freezer section in the right hand corner of the supermarket, right next to it I added some normal shelves, and inside the shelves I added every single printed tile, brick, whatever that I had in my collection that made somewhat sense to be sold inside the supermarket. You can see it right there, chocolate, drinks, cupcakes, you name it, along with some customers, and of course a checkout register right there. When it came to the roof, I now decided, since we have such a packed interior, it would somewhat be sad if you couldn't see it from outside, and therefore I decided to add a glass roof right in the center. That also, of course, lets in light during the daylight, but also allows you, if you stand in front of the city, to see the inside. The corner next to the supermarket is a bit more run down, with all the junk being stored right there, and on the other side I added some more city bikes. That just brings the entire area to life. And now, on to the most important part, adding back the bridge that we removed at the beginning of this Lego City update, and there you can see also how important the shadow of the bridge is for the vibe within the skate park, and also of course to cover it up a bit. As I mentioned earlier, now it's time to let the tram run. Of course, when we programmed the tram, we didn't know where the last final tram stop is going to be, and therefore it was now time to test out how far to the right we needed to program the final position of the tram. And then after 20 or 30 minutes of calibrating the perfect position for the tram, this is what the final result now looks like. I think it was time well spent. I think we managed to hit the perfect stopping spot. And in fact, that's not the only thing we spend time on when it comes to things that aren't purely Lego. There you can see we added once again, of course, lights for the nighttime mode. Lighting up the city is of course a continuous progress, and therefore we're still not finished at all in this area right there. For now, I'd say let's switch over to the mountain, where I promised you at the beginning of today's video that we're now going to install the cable car. And for that, this is the platform for the mountain station at an angle, because we have the entire thing run diagonal to the studs, which was of course once again a bit more difficult, but in the end this is now what everything looks like with this cable running to the top station right there. And now, in order to have the gondola run and function, we installed wheels on top, placed the wheels on top of this nylon cord, because we figured with the nylon cord we would have the least possible friction. And then it was already time for the first tests. At the beginning we only used the power functions, remote control and motors of course, because this was the quickest and easiest possibility for us to check the speed, if the entire thing is stable enough, because we didn't want it to wobble when it was going up and down the mountain. But of course, having it remote controlled isn't what we are aiming for, and therefore it was now time to program everything. And for that we used a sensor that can notice when the gondola enters the top station and then stop the motor. We therefore then placed the sensor inside the mountain station, in the middle right there you can see that, and placed that back into this slot we've prepared earlier. And with that, I'd say it's time to have the first real-life tests. So the gondola should come out any second now. As you can see, up there it's currently empty, and there we go. Now you can see the gondola accelerating for the middle part, because otherwise one trip would take like 5 minutes and then it would get boring really quickly. And this speed, however, would be a bit too fast to enter the station. And therefore, since it's more realistic when it now decelerates once again, right now you can see that, and because it's safer that way, it decelerates and then enters the upper station at a really slow speed until the sensor recognizes the gondola once again, and then it stops completely. Same story when it goes down again. It now starts accelerating, and then as soon as we enter the middle part, it then is much quicker than before until the gondola reaches the bottom station. Up here I can show you the mechanism. So this is where the cable is then being turned via this motor right there. It's a bit difficult to film at the moment. There you can see it decelerate once again until it fully stops, and then it takes us at the moment about 45 seconds until the entire process starts once again. Next up, we're probably going to motorize the windmill back there, simply because it's also much easier to motorize than the automation of the entire gondola system right there. Remember to support my LEGO Ideas project if you haven't done that so far. First link in the video description. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.